We've got some fresh
Hey,
new
I'm
young
Luis.
talent doing
And
some
I'm
things
Luis.
that I
And
know
you're
you
listening
haven't
to the
heard
Content
before.
is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com.
All right, guys, how would you like to always have something to talk about, whether you plan it in advance or not? That sounds interesting.
My gosh.
And you know what? I think that's what we're going to be talking about today. But if you stay all the way to the end, we have a little surprise for you.
Ooh.
What is it, Daniel? What is it?
I'm rubbing my hands right here, man. It's fire, 5. So the surprise we got for you is a 3-step unbreakable process to becoming an idea machine.
What?
And wink, wink.
Wink, wink for those that are not watching live. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. It's way easier than you expect.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So excited.
So you know what to do, right? If you want to learn the 3-step unbreakable process, just stay till the end. Just watch
Stay
the
till
whole
the
thing.
end. Have fun, engage. If you guys have questions, if you are live with us today, please leave your
Tongue twister right there.
tongue twister right there. Just leave your questions in the comments. Engage with us because we do stay after the episode live on Facebook and answer those lives.
And if you're listening on your favorite platform, guys, just don't forget to give us a 5-star review. Smash the subscribe button like my brother says. Just smash it pretty hard. And guys, if you want to support us, the only thing that we ask for is for you to share this podcast with your friends or with people that you know this is going to benefit from. So, for example, today, if you know that one person that is always like, but I need to publish, I need to create content, but I don't know what to say. I don't know, I've covered all the topics. Guys, then this is the episode you want to share with them.
Is their episode. That's right. We're gonna get rolling here. Fonzie, we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, sweet. So, tell me a little bit like why you came up with this topic today, and yeah, tell me. I think you got a story here for us.
I mean, the reason why I came with this topic is because it's literally something that happens every day to us.
Yeah.
And I think we trained our minds to get in like this zone of becoming an idea machine, right? Like trying to never run out of topics.
Yeah.
And that's the concept that we're going to be talking about today, right? And before going into it and revealing everybody what this is actually about, right? Like what this thing that we're talking about that we're keeping as a secret,
It's like a treasure.
causing curiosity about. I want to share a little story, right? Because we grew up again as athletes. If you've been following our podcast, you know that we talk about it a lot. That we grew up playing soccer every single day, right?
By the way, if you want to play soccer with us, just let us know.
Yeah, just let us know.
We'll take it.
That's right. So this topic that we're going to talk about today, I'm relating it to soccer and to sports, and not only sports, but like music as well. It happens in music as well. But there are certain principles, right, in soccer, techniques that every single player learns throughout their journey, right, in that sport. And that happened to us, right? When we're practicing soccer, you first start by, okay, I need to learn how to dribble the ball. So we went out to our soccer field with our dad, after classes every single day, and we would practice dribbling. And then he's like, okay, now you guys need to learn how to pass. And we started learning how to pass. Now you need to learn how to shoot.
I have a fun story of you learning how to pass.
Yeah, well, we can. All right.
No, it's fine. We can continue.
I know what it is. I mean, I love this story. I embrace it. Tell the story.
So one afternoon, we had like this soccer field. Maybe it was like a block away from our house. Well, not a block. Like 5 blocks? I don't know. We could walk to it. And full of dirt, full of like little stones, little rocks here and there. And we'll go out with our father, and he was a very strict man. We love him to death, of course. And one of these days, we're practicing passing. So he goes like, "Hey, Fonzie, you gotta give it to my feet. Like, it cannot be like a foot like away from me. Like, it has to go straight to my 2 feet. That's it." So they go in, and then one of those passes, it goes away, and it was probably less than a feet away, but he did not move, and the ball just goes past him. And he's like, okay, now you got to go run and get it, right? And my brother's like, oh my gosh, okay, well, I'll go. But
I was pretty lazy.
He was pretty lazy. I think we're both still pretty lazy. And this is why we come up with some solutions to our problems. And anyway, so instead of him running and sprinting like my dad was screaming him to do, he's just walking and jogging super slow, and my dad just cannot take it, and he just grabs like this rock. By the way, we do not don't do this to your kids, please don't. Yeah, my brother's like, okay, go do it. No, don't do it. Anyway, so he grabs his rocks and just
he starts throwing rocks at me. He's like,
go get
run!
The ball.
And obviously, I started sprinting because I was like, he's gonna hit me with the rock. But
anyways, he got the ball, and then they continued.
Yeah, I don't think he was actually aiming at me, but whatever. No. We definitely deviated from the main topic, guys.
Sorry, I just had to share that story.
When you practice a sport, right, you have to learn all these basic techniques that everybody else is learning. But when you go and play the game, every single player is different. Yeah. Right? You see them on the field, and you see them like they can do the same technique, but still they have an essence of like something that makes them different.
Their thing, right? The one thing.
Right. And it's the same with music. Like everybody plays with the notes, right? I mean, I'm not a musician, so if I'm using the wrong terminology, I'm sorry. But everybody like learn all the notes, and then they compose their own music, right? They make it their own.
There's a finite like number of chords, or however those are called.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
There's a finite number, and then people get super creative, and they start grabbing from different places, right? I think that's where you want to go.
They start adding kind of like building blocks. They start adding on top to each other, and they make their own. Yep. And when it comes to content and ideas, it's exactly the same thing. Because guys, if you think about it, probably every thought that goes through your head, probably somebody already had it. Yeah. If you start thinking about something and you're like, oh, that's a brand new idea, and you start doing some research, you're probably going to find someone that already had that idea and talk about it.
Yeah, I remember like beating myself over this stuff because, as we start researching and learning about new topics, like you guys are probably doing by listening to the show or watching the lives, right? You guys are gathering information here and there. And there's a ton of experts. There's a ton of people giving a ton of information already. And you're like, oh my gosh, how do they create like so much? How do they talk about that stuff? Like even like, for example, Gary Vee, he's been publishing videos for like 10 years, right? How does he do it? And I remember being like, oh my God, like I remember being in that same position. Like I got to think about something new every single day. So when they tell you like you got to publish every day, you got to be present every day, there's methods that you can do this, but obviously you have to come up with some topics to create your main piece of content. And I remember being so frustrated that I couldn't figure that one out because I will think of something and then somebody else will have it out there, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot talk about that because there's somebody else talking about it.
Somebody else already did it.
I could not be more wrong. I lived in that frustration for so long, and I do not regret it whatsoever because it was a learning process. But we want to shortcut you that experience so you can figure this one out.
Yeah, and that exact thing that we're talking about on how to become an idea machine is literally an aggregator method. Right, and now we're getting a little bit into it, an aggregator method, and pretty much what it is you feed yourself with ideas, right? Like every day we're learning things, and I don't know if you are like us, that as soon as we learn something, we crave to like talk about it to other people.
Oh yeah, big time.
You can ask my brother today. I was like, dude, like he was trying to work and I was reading this book and I was like, every 2 minutes, I was like, dude, look what it says here, right? Like you really want to share what you're learning, then this method is perfect for you because all you need is an idea and a story, right? And you need to ask yourself one question. But guys, I want to get actually into how I discovered this method, right? Because as you were saying, you were very frustrated with it.
Yeah, so frustrated.
And I think I was exactly the same. I was like, okay, I know I need to create content. I'm 100% sure that I can do it.
Yeah.
No, at that point, I had so many self-limiting beliefs. But I was like, okay, this is the topic I want to talk about. Oh no, already somebody did it. And it's just like a circle. You're like, oh, what am I going to do, right? And I remember that I found this one guy. His name is Miles Beckler.
Okay.
And he had a challenge. This was years ago. He had a challenge, like a 90-day challenge. It was not paid anything. He was just preaching about it.
Yeah.
He's like, this is what I did to grow my channel exponentially. He's like,
where was he publishing at the time? Was it YouTube?
Yeah, he does YouTube and he blogs. Okay. So he's like, in 90 days, every single day, post something. And I'm like, cool. But then my mind immediately went to, whoa, but like, how am I supposed to post for 90 days in a row if I don't have no idea what I'm going to talk in like day 2, right?
Yeah.
So that obviously like stopped me right there from doing anything, and I never got to do the 90-day challenge.
Yeah,
right?
I think like from like going from where that mind like that mind spot that you were like at that moment, like you were so, I guess, probably intimidated, like, oh my God, 90 days, like uphill. This happens in all levels of this industry when people are starting to create content for themselves or, you know, for other companies. And we actually work with bigger companies that had the same issue, same issue. And we don't want this to become a friction point for you to start publishing, because any level that you're in, this is going to happen. And it is an issue if you don't address it immediately.
Yeah, I can't even count with my hands how many times I've heard the question, but what am I going to talk about? You know, like, it's like, dude, there's so many things you could talk about, right?
So many. Yeah.
So yeah, like, again, going back to Miles Beckler's story, he released that challenge. He's just preaching about it. And, you know, my mindset was like, no, I cannot do it because I don't know what to talk about. Eventually, I run into this Facebook post that he did that it was titled, "There's No New Ideas." And I think that's when my mind went like, whoa. Because I read the post, and the post pretty much was like, hey, like, every idea has been covered out there, right? And you got to make peace with it. Pretty much every niche out there is like taken, you know? Yeah. So you got to make peace with it. So how can you make something your own, right? And he refers it as you are remixing the content. So pretty much you got to grab ideas and your stories and create that remix that he's talking about and make it your own, right? And we're gonna go to that as we keep going on this episode.
I love that. I mean, I think that element of adding your story or a story, right? Because we're gonna dive in just a second, but adding that element of story, because the idea is there, right? So let's say we're gonna be talking about cars. How many YouTubers are talking about cars? And I remember when I was about to buy my dream car, which is a Jeep, I went through accounts and accounts and accounts of people just publishing and talking about the benefits or how Jeeps are different, whatever, Jeep reviews and so on. And each one of them were able to publish about that car because they were putting their own twists, their own stories, their own personality, right? And that kept me watching the video at that point, right?
Yeah.
So
that's what makes them different, right?
Exactly. So like bringing it back to either if you're gonna create social media content or YouTube content, you keep in mind you have an audience, right? And we're gonna dive in a little bit deeper in that. But it's like who are you talking to? What's the story that you can tell? Then you can add that principle of the item or the idea that you're gonna be talking about, and then the mix of those together is gonna be an amazing. I was gonna say glitter bomb, but I don't know why glitter bomb.
What?
I know I saw a movie yesterday with glitter bombs and stuff, but
the editor, please just drop a glitter bomb.
But anyway, so it's gonna be like a bomb of goodness, right? Then your audience is gonna enjoy and consume, right?
Yeah, I mean, and again, as marketers, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have a huge interest in being a marketer, or you are already currently a marketer, and in the marketing world, we know the importance, how key it is to know storytelling, right? To be a good storyteller and to include story in any of your campaigns, pretty much in any single message that you're going to put out there.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Fonzie, what if I am the most antisocial. Like I'm like in my room and I have no stories whatsoever, which by the way, everybody has a ton of stories.
Yep.
But let's say
dig them out.
Dig them out. You know, things happen to you in life, you know, that you can always relate. And I understand that sometimes people cannot feel comfortable sharing their own stories. You know, if it's something negative, you know, that one might still be open. So maybe you wait a little time so then you can share that story. But there's always stuff that you can share. But in the case that we still believe that there's no stories, what can you do?
All right, so that's a really, really good question.
Thank you.
Again, some people might not feel ready to share their stories, right? And that's okay. Totally understandable because like sharing stories puts you in a vulnerable place.
Yep.
But again, remember, and this is key, stories make you relatable, right? And being vulnerable is what's gonna help you connect with your audience.
Yeah.
So that being said, if you are like, no, I don't want to tell my stories yet, you can always borrow authority, right? And this we actually learned from the great Austin Dixon.
Yeah, Austin. Shout out to you, my man.
He's actually, I would say, he's one of our coaches.
Yeah.
He is a great marketer, amazing. And he was talking about, this one day he was talking about webinars. And somebody asked the question like, hey, Austin, but like, what if I don't have any testimonials yet? Yeah. What can I do? And he said, it's okay, because you can borrow authority from other like influencers in the area, right? Or like experts. So we were like, well, but how does that work exactly? And he wasn't saying steal their testimonials and use them. Yeah. He was saying use their expertise. Pretty much you're quoting them into your content and using their stories to make a point. Right.
Now I ask you another question. I'm playing
follow question.
Devil's advocate, right? So what if people out there be like, okay, well, I don't want to advertise anybody else. What's something that they can do? I have an answer for them.
Ooh, that's interesting.
He's like, okay, you know, you want to hear my answer?
I do.
I'm like, then you have to share your stories.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, I was like, I don't think there's any other way.
Yeah. So either you borrow authority or you tell your stories, right? And
preferably you tell your own stories.
Exactly. That's like top priority. That's like what we highly recommend because the audience that you're talking to is the people that follow you. It's been funny. Like we've lived there, right? Like the second we start sharing the videos with the two huskies. Amazing. People are like, oh my God. And they create this bond because they like dogs, right? And then FONZI, you know, when you share your stories, same thing happened. You know, when we just posted maybe like a couple of hours ago that you shaved your beard.
Yeah, exactly.
It has been amazing, right? So please go watch the video, check him out without a beard and with the beard if you go back to the episodes.
Yeah, and I think it again, I'm going to go back to 45 Live because that is, you know, kind of like our bread and butter here. We've talked about 45 Live so many times. And guys, when we started it, I was asking sometimes a question like, what am I going to talk about? We were already a little bit in that mindset.
Yeah.
But the first episodes, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to tell my story. And for those that are familiar, I told it in a little sideways webinar, you know. So
we'll dive into that maybe another episode.
We'll talk about that in some other episode. If you have a question on what a sideways webinar is, just hit us in the comments or in the DMs, right? But yeah, I was like, okay, I'm gonna share my story. I'm gonna talk and be vulnerable. And the response of people was amazing because especially the people that already know you, but they maybe never heard your story before coming from you. I think it's a little bit eye-opening. They're like, wow, I didn't know he has those feelings. I didn't know those were his goals. And they start to relate with you, and the response is always good. You know, again, you're always going to have some haters, but if you have haters, that's when you know you're doing something good.
Exactly. So obviously, I mean, last time we talked about, not in this show, in the Spanish show, we were talking about that fear of judgment. And there's an element there too, right? Like, and we're not going to dive in super like deep on that right now. We can always do an episode just on judgment. But I remember having a story like myself, right? We now publish like crazy. We do 24 shows a month. I keep saying 30. Yeah. Sounds nicer. But anyways, we do 24 live shows a month. That's almost one every day. And then we put ourselves out there with our stories too. So we're not there all the time. we grew into this, and we understand that it takes time. We understand that is not easy, just because for me it was that fear of judgment from the people that I knew at the time, like my friends and stuff. And just to make the long story short, surprise, they were all so freaking excited that I was sharing my stories, and I just took that positive and kept grabbing into that positive to continue to do this.
Yeah, just he started getting momentum, right? And then use that momentum to fuel the whole movement, right? The whole publishing movement. So actually, I have a question for you.
Hold on. Before we go into that question, if you want us to do an episode or a show around judgment, leave it in the comments below. And if you're listening in the podcast, let us know through the DMs, because we would love to dive into those stories with you. We did it on the Spanish show, but we want to do it here too. Because I think that's like a sore point and a very important topic to talk about.
Yeah, that's definitely one of people's, I would say, biggest fears.
Yeah. So ask me the question. Ask me the question.
Coming back to the content goodness, right? And the soon to release the three-step unbreakable process that we're going to be talking about, right? That we have been teasing for the whole show.
So excited.
So there's people out there that say, okay, you need to plan your content like a month in advance, right? And not gonna lie, that takes a lot of brain power, right?
You can.
We're not saying
it's a way to do it.
It's a way to do it. We're not saying it's wrong.
We've done it.
Exactly. We have done it, and when we've done it, like it consumes our brain power, literally, because you're just thinking, okay, what am I gonna do? All this topic, and again, it might work for you.
For some people, it might work. Yeah, and we're gonna share those strategies too at some point. But for me personally, just the thought about sitting for an entire morning and plan this out, it just consumes me. So because we're so lazy, like we talked about earlier.
He didn't even let me ask the question.
Okay, ask me a question.
He was already gonna answer. I didn't even get to ask the question.
Sorry, ask me a question.
Jeez.
Oh my gosh.
So, okay, going back to it, there's people that like preach, hey, you gotta beginning of the month plan for the whole 30 days, right? Like, so is there a better way or a faster way that won't take that much time and that much brain power, and you can still get an awesome outcome with your content?
Definitely, yes. Woo! All right. By the way,
and now you can say the answer.
All right. Yeah. So we actually have comments coming in that they do want a show on judgment. So thank you, Bud. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Osmar, for commenting and being engaging here. So again, if you are listening on the podcast, feel free to send us a DM. Be like, guys, I want you guys to talk about judgment or anything else, and we'll put it on the list. So there you go. That's one way to kind of create content, right? People are going to ask you to do it. So, but the ones that we want to talk about today is because we are lazy. I mean, for the longest time, we didn't want to accept that we were lazy, but we are. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people out there, very smart people, that are lazy. But guess what? If you want to achieve a goal hard enough, if that's exactly what you want, then you're going to come up with a solution so your laziness doesn't come in the way. So like I said,
I'm going to make a little parenthesis here. I grew up, again, I was super lazy. My dad would throw me rocks when we were practicing soccer, so I would run and get the soccer ball.
Don't throw rocks to your kids, please.
And again, I love my dad. Nothing against my dad. Thank you, Dad. But he would also say, because, for example, I was sitting in the kitchen, I was doing my homework, and I did something wrong in the paper, and I was like, okay, I gotta throw this paper away. So instead of grabbing the paper, walking to the trash can and dropping it right there and go back to my seat, I would throw it to the trash can. Most times I would miss, and then I would have to get up and put it in the trash can. And my dad would always say, a lazy person works double. That's a rough translation from Spanish, but what that means is that the effort that a lazy person does is double at the end of the day, because again, I miss and then I still have to get up and do it, right? For me, it made no sense because I was like, I'm still just getting up once, right?
Yeah.
But what I want to get with this story is that the fact that I was lazy, sometimes it led me to very creative ideas.
Yes.
Because very creative solutions to problems that they weren't really problems. It was just me being lazy. But I was like, how can I do this in an efficient way without wasting energy? And I will come up with awesome solutions. That being said, let's go back to the content.
There we go. Back in, yeah. full circle to content now. So because we're lazy, we talk about the frictionless sale. We talk about frictionless ways to create content, right? So how can we go back and get these awesome content ideas or strategies, right?
Become an idea machine.
Become an idea machine without having to plan this out for, a full day because it was mentally taxing, and because that was causing friction, then we were not gonna do it, right?
And because we don't have the time to sit down for so many hours to plan it, right?
That's the other one.
And that might be your problem too. If you're listening to this, time is a huge issue nowadays.
So if you combine both, right? I don't have the time plus the laziness, that becomes a problem, right? So we're like, okay, there's no way, because we're so invested in content. We believe that this is content is going to mean profit for our company because it does. We've seen it. How can we come up with a solution that allows us to continuously become an idea machine day in, day out, right? Because we publish every day. So, because of the nature of our business, and probably you are there too, and please don't stop learning, right? You are going to be learning something new every day. There's going to be a piece of news that you read. There's going to be a piece of information that you will see online. There's going to be a post that you see somewhere that is going to resonate with you, that is going to be new to you, and you're going to learn something new. Now,
every single day we learn something new.
Every single day you're learning something new. Even if it's not on your field, you can be learning something new on your life, right? It might be something that your kid did, something, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that he could do that, right? It happens to me all the time. I have a 1-year-old, right? It happens to Fonzi all the time, right? With his relationships, and with me, it's like, oh my god.
I was like, I have no kids, so I don't know how that happens.
But he goes like, oh my god, LUISDA did this, and he's like, oh, I had no idea. Thank you for the teaching. So anyways, so you're gonna be learning something new every day. So all you need to ask is, how can I apply this, right, to my topic? And then what story can you add that it makes it relatable or appealing to your audience? And that's it.
So I want to go back full circle to the first story that we told about sports and music, right?
Yeah.
We said it's like building blocks.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what we're doing to become an idea machine. Literally is, you ask yourself, what did you learn? That's block number one. Mm-hmm. And then you say, how can I relate this to my topic? Block number two. And then block number three, you include the story you want to share with everybody. Super simple.
Do you have an example other than this one?
I do have a really good example, and that example is this podcast that we're recording
this
today.
Episode,
actually,
yeah. Okay.
This exact episode. And we actually heard a podcast from Russell Brunson.
Yes.
And he was actually talking about something very similar. Yep. And he called it the aggregator method, I think. I don't know. I actually don't know if he had a name for it, but he was talking about that, about how ideas, they're not his, but what he do is he adds more to that idea, not necessarily stories. He just says he tries to add more, maybe his own bias, right? His own opinions, and he formulates his own original idea.
Yeah.
And when we heard that, I was like, you know what? Like, we can do exactly like that's, well, in part, that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And we maybe we just frame it in a different way, because we ask the question, how can we relate this idea to our topic?
Yeah.
And then what story we can add. And that's exactly what we did with this podcast. Right? We're like, what did we learn? Aggregator. Okay, let's grab an idea. Boom. And that's it. Pretty much. Let's grab a story, and that's it.
And it's funny. I think like this started obviously with our 45 Live, that we talk so much about. We owe a lot to that process there, because it's not about directly the content that comes out of that. Is the way that you can find your voice through these videos, and the way that you start finding those ideas. So you're basically training your mind, you're training yourself to become this idea machine, because you're like, okay, what happened today? So you have to be in the moment, you have to be present. You're gonna go through your day, you're gonna live more purposely, because you're gonna be reading things and you're gonna be purposely learning, right? Because you need to publish every day. So for us, yes, content, it means profit, because on the business side, it creates content conversations, it creates relationships, but also on the back end of that content, you're improving yourself every single day because you're looking for information that you can then frame within your stories so you can share with your audience and then build a report. So see how it's a full circle? Like content lies right in the middle. And then you start that process with, okay, what did I learn today? I live my day purposely. I'm learning, I'm improving myself. So what happened today that I can relate that topic with my life and my audience? Then I deliver it to content, and then you build rapport with your audience that then it comes back to you for business advice, business transactions, whatever that means, right? So I think it's a wonderful, beautiful little process there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, again, it's like everything. You got to train yourself to think that way, because it's not going to happen overnight, right? You got to be conscious about it. Like you're saying, you got to be intentional, right? So for example, when I'm reading a book, I always carry a highlighter and I'm highlighting ideas. And then when I go back to the book, I'm like, okay, how can I relate this to content is profit? Literally, that's the question that I ask myself. How can I relate this to content is profit?
I love it.
There's actually a story that we heard at 10X a while ago. This guy, he used to go to events that they weren't events from his industry. He would literally just go and sneak in and sit down, and people would ask him like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just listening." And what he would do is he would grab those other industries' ideas, and then he would implement them in his business, and they would be widely successful.
Yeah.
So again, it doesn't matter. Like you don't have to be learning about marketing to talk about marketing. You can be learning something about, life related, or again, something about a sport. I love going back to sport because that's what we grew up on. And you can take that and say, okay, how can I relate that to my topic? I think we reached the point where we can finally release. Hold on,
before we finally release the secret, I want to give one last example, right? Because we talked about, your business and your stuff. And I remember one night I came back home, and it was during my second round of 45 Lives, and I'm chatting with my wife, right? And my wife, wonderful, fully supports what we're doing, amazing. She has been super patient with me, but at the same time, she's very stubborn, right? So we're having this conversation, and if you want to see the full video, you're going to have to go back to my profile and check it out. But basically, I grabbed her stubbornness and her reaction to the conversation that we were having, and with her permission, obviously. I'm like, baby, I think this is amazing. I think this is wonderful. I'm actually going to share this story. Do you let me share this story? And she's like, yeah, that's fine. She's gotten used to me sharing all this stuff. So she's like, perfect. So I related.
No privacy in that relationship.
There is some degree of privacy, of course. But I was sharing, how being stubborn, right? And then I shared the story that happened with her that night. I shared another story of me being stubborn, and then I related the stubbornness with your content creation strategy, right? So it was something that happened in my private life. Again, like find those stories, right? You're gonna feel more comfortable sharing something more things than another, right? But I use that as fuel to then put my point across, which is you have to be relentless on your content, on your publishing. You gotta be stubborn, right? On publishing every day, basically. That was the story at that point. So, Fonzie, you ready to
finally guys? It's about time. It is going down, guys. Right now, we're going to tell you the three-step unbreakable process to become.
It is truly unbreakable because
an idea machine. It's unbreakable because it's so simple, guys.
It's gone, and we've tested it and we've done it. And if we actually do it, it means that it's unbreakable.
I mean, again, lazy people look for creative solutions.
I love it. All right. So tell me, point number one, what is it?
Well, first, this process comes after you already know what you want, what you learned that day.
Exactly.
So you say, okay, this day I learned X, Y, and Z. Then the process kicks in. Step number one, and this you do it once, and you have it there forever. You're going to create a list of your dream customers' pains and desires. Again, as you get to know your dream customer, you're going to be adding pains and desires over there. But it's good that you know them, because when you craft your message, your stories, you're going to be talking to them and you're going to be talking to the problems. Do you remember the beginning of the episode when we ask you some questions like, how would you like to always have something to talk about? It's because we know one of the pain of our dream customer is the lack of material when creating the content.
Yeah, and again, this list, you can keep it like the pains and desires. You can keep it on your phone, on your notes. You can keep it on a little note in front of your desk. Like, this is something that you do one, and then you start adding new things as you create conversations. So
yeah, a good example is that we actually have it in our office. We just put some tape, wrote on the tape, pain desires, split it down the middle.
If you want to see the picture of it, again, reach out to us, DM, comment right below.
Yep.
Because we're happy to send it to you so you have a visual.
Yeah, we just put it in Post-it notes. Then we just add Post-it notes. So step number 1, create a list of your dream customers, pains, and desires. Step number 2, pick a story that you can attach to the topic you want to talk about. Preferably, if you know what type of feeling you want to give to your audience, whether it is curiosity, excitement, you know better your stories than anybody else, or you know whose story you want to borrow and use as authority, right?
Exactly. So step number 1, again, create a list of your dream customer, pains and desires. Step 2, pick a story that you can attach to the topic that you want to talk about.
And step number 3 is critical, guys. This is the most important step. You cannot mess up on this one.
If you're listening next to your notebook or your iPhone and you open your notes and write this down, because this is so important.
Yeah. If you didn't took any notes during the whole show, this is when you want to grab your pen and paper and write it down.
Are you ready?
You say it. Step number 3 is...
Step number 3 is created and hit publish.
Simple as that. You just gotta do it. Take action. That's it.
Take action, guys. Like, it's so easy. We were so freaked out. We were so scared to do this a while back. We still are. We have to put some music, jump around, get all hyped up to do this, and we're enjoying the process. That's all part of the secret. Yeah. But we are actually doing them live because it actually allows us to publish it, right? Once we stop the recording, it goes there and it's published. There's no way back, and that's the reason that we do it. You don't have to do it live, but please, once that piece of content is created and done, hit the publish. That was one of the friction points that stopped us from publishing the first 5 episodes of this podcast, which are not the 5 episodes that are right now.
Yeah.
Those are locked in a vault somewhere.
Secret vault.
But that was the only reason that we didn't publish. We had the list, we picked stories, we told the stories, and then guess what? We didn't publish. So step number 1, create a list of your dream customers' pains and desires. Step number 2, pick a story that you can attach to that topic.
And to those pains and desires.
And step 3 is created and hit publish.
Yep. That sounds about right. And guys, with that, I think we're done for today. And you have just turned yourself into an idea machine that are never going to run out of topics to create content.
Yeah. All right, guys. If you love the episode, if you liked it, please do not forget to subscribe. Make sure to follow us in all the social media channels at the BIZBROS Co. Content is Profit. Subscribe, share it, have fun, and we will see you soon again.
Yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.
All right.